everyone. This is Alicia, and thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Eat Me podcast. You know, it's wild. It's Saturday, January 10th, and I'm here. I was thinking, like, okay, the conversation that I want to have with everyone is very complex on my end, nothing on everyone's end, honestly. And I think me bringing up this topic is obviously not going to be a shock to at least Americans, and even on a global scale. This whole idea around ICE, right, and their function here in the United States, to me, their function has beyond exhausted its time here in this country, and more people are feeling it now more than ever, particularly white folks, after the brutal murder of Renee Nicole Good. And, it's really unfortunate that this woman lost her life. She was a wife, she was a mother. Um, I'm assuming obviously she was a daughter, she was someone's friend. She was someone that was deeply loved and cared for. And to know that a senseless act like her murder being done is just disgusting. And it's not new, right? Many people in this country that aren't white, obviously, have been unfortunately taken from this earth by the hands of ICE and law enforcement in general. Let's just be completely honest. The story of Renee Nicole Good, as many have shared, and I'll share now, I mean, it's a story that has gotten obviously a lot more coverage than the various people who have been killed, harassed, and assaulted by white men in this country. And I had shared like two or three, maybe just two, but two, I'll say two posts on TikTok about my thoughts and feelings around Renee, and I'll talk more about that here, regarding her murder, regarding the outcry that we're seeing from this country on a global scale, and also with white people, particularly white women, and their sense of security being lost in this country with this uh, murder that took place here in the United States of America. I think what many people fail to realize is that for years, Black people have been saying that these injustices were a thing within our community. And the gaslighting and the downplaying of our outcries for so many years has led to this. And, it's wild to see folks so upset and saying things like, "This is not the America I knew. We're better than this." I mean, all the slogans that you traditionally hear from people who have been brainwashed by the society to think that America was a safe place to be. And now they're finding out that it's not at all. Uh, unless you are a white man in this country that has, a decent amount of money, uh, you're safe. But if not, more times than not, you are in harm's way because you're expendable in this country. The majority of people in this country, even though a lot of white people have thought that they were of the supreme class or race in this country, have been used. They've been used in this game to, keep up white supremacy for the wealthy, for those who are benefiting from racism and capitalism, the patriarchy, all the things. They have used these folks to, maintain this narrative, and for, as long as I can remember, and obviously beyond, me even being on this earth, this has been a thing. And I would not want to downplay anyone's grief or sadness as it relates to their feelings about their safety and security in this country. And at the same time, I have to question your morality and your sense of empathy for others outside of your racial group or your racial gender group, right? Because, like I said, there's a lot of white women who are really upset and feel, uh, they don't feel safe in the United States. And like I said, I've seen various videos on social media where people are expressing their thoughts and feelings on that. And feelings are valid. But like I said, my concern lies in the current outrage. The current outrage around Renee Nicole Good's death, when there have been so many more people who have fallen victim to ICE and, like I said, law enforcement here in the United States of America. And I want to be clear, like I said before, I am really heartbroken about her death. It was senseless. There was nothing that she did that would have caused or provoked this man to brutally kill her in that way. Nothing at all. It's my concern after her life was taken, the people who are now just up in arms and have had it, right? Quote unquote, have had it. That's where I'm struggling to understand how we can move forward with injustice that is not taking place with white people. Because here's the thing, like beyond uh, the country making changes to like legislation and things of that nature, and how we're governed here in this country, as quick as a bill is passed or a law is created, or whatever, in terms of how we are supposed to be governed in this country and the rules that we have to follow, regardless of these things, like I said, they can be quickly changed in an instant once someone else comes into power and has the ability to change those laws. You know what I'm saying? Because just like anything else, if we think about Roe v. Wade and other laws that we thought would never be touched, we have seen that in this lifetime completely be changed. And people have suffered because of these changes. People who we would think, I want to say people we think, people that we thought were, secure in that particular thing in terms of reproductive health. And, oh, that would never be changed because here we are, right? But like I said, when certain folks get into power, they make changes as they see fit, at not in the way of the greater good of the folks that it's actually affecting. And so that has nothing to do with us following the law, if you're following me, because laws are made up. They're made up. And laws are created by way of the current mindset and the collective mindset, rather, in whatever powerful positions folks are in to even create these laws, right? And even though Roe v. Wade and different laws have been put in place, and we can think about DEI initiatives and things of that nature that have easily been changed, it is because of the current mindset of the people that have the power. Uh, and I know many people are saying now that, and I've been saying this for years, we as the people have the power, and we do. But we have easily shifted that power to the folks that are supposed to be serving us, the folks that are in these positions. Uh, we have allowed them to take reign in a way that should have never been in a quote unquote democracy. And so here we are. Here we are dealing with dictators, wannabe dictators, because that, as we know it, things are terribly, things are happening in a terrible manner. But in terms of true leadership and follow through, it's in shambles. Let's be serious. But we have folks that have been following the mindsets of these people who have uh, been in power. And unfortunately, with the folks that have proclaimed this power and we've allowed them to take over our power, they have created narratives and have brainwashed people into thinking certain things so other things are justified, i.e., Nicole Good's death, right? People are giving, they're explaining away as to why she died. Oh, she was, attempting to, run this man over, and so many different stories that people have created in their heads to justify her death. And this takes me to the various folks who have died at the hands of law enforcement in this country, particularly Black folks and brown folks here, where folks have explained away why, their death was necessary or why they did die, because of, you know, they shouldn't have had on their hood walking down the street. They had the hoodie on. It was, you know, they presented as a dangerous individual, right? Oh, so, Eric Garner, he shouldn't have been selling Lucy's on the street, right? George Floyd, some people even deemed him as someone who was, like a drug addict. Like there were so many different scenarios and stories, put around these folks to justify uh, people agreeing with the folks in power and kind of washing away the uh, I guess like the toxicity, and not even so much toxicity, but the wrongdoing of these folks who took these people's lives. And so, like I said, it brings me. So, saying all this, and then coming back to this whole idea of outrage in this country right now, it makes me question how many of these people who are now outraged by the lack of security and safety that they feel in this country, how many of those folks explained away George Floyd's death, explained away Eric Garner's death, explained away Sandra Bland's death, explained away, this person and that person. And you know what I'm saying? Like, how many of those folks that are outraged right now were outraged then? Does that make sense? It's a mindset shift that has to happen in this country. There's no law that's going to change how things are managed here in this country. People's minds have to change first and be okay with what is being done in this country in terms of the betterment of this country in order for us to actually find true like peace and liberation in the United States of America. Because no matter what you do or say, even folks who feel like they're empowered and entitled, white supremacists as well, all of the folks who have felt like they were, unscathed in this country, there's been no true liberation for anybody, really, if you think about it. Because in order for the system to have worked how it's worked for so long, there had to have been something to fear, right? Black men, immigrants, trans people, the list goes on as to who we fear. Folks over in the Middle East, right? Weapons of mass destruction. I mean, that was like the thing growing up all as long as I can remember. And that was the fire that fueled many Americans to go, full throttle in support of the United States going to war. In Iraq and in Iran and all the different places overseas that we have, basically gone in and brutally uh, created war-torn areas in places where folks were just living their lives and just trying to make it like everybody else. And why? Why is all this being done? In the name of power. In the name of power and conquering, right? And using innocent people to some extent. I'm not gonna say everyone's innocent, but using people and brainwashing them into thinking that what they're standing behind is for their safety, and they must fear these certain people because they're not safe for them. And the country is doing a service for these folks by way of taking them out, right? It's crazy to me that pattern recognition is obsolete in a lot of folks' minds. And I'm hoping with this awakening of a lot of white folks, white women as well, that there is an understanding of being mindful of the patterns that we see happening, not only in this country, but on a global scale when it comes to leaders trying to, attack certain countries for whatever reason. Like, get to the crux. Critically think, why do they want to do this to these people? As opposed to, I trust you blindly. I believe that you are looking out for the greater good of who I am in this country or whatever, right? Whatever narrative these leaders have spun, because at the end of the day, it really is the people on the ground, the everyday person that's going to suffer, and they're going to go away unscathed because they're not going on the field to do shit. They're just going to tell you all this stuff, and you're just going to go behind them, guns blazing, and hopefully you'll come out alive. And I think this whole idea, not idea, but I think this whole unfortunate incident with Renee Nicole Good has kind of caused people to have a pause in their patriotic stance in this country. I'm not saying all, because like I said, there are still folks explaining away her situation, which I think is one of the reasons why a lot of white folks are like, wait a minute, hold up. Now, it's one thing when black people get killed, but she was white. How are you, and I'm saying this as another white person, how was this other white person explaining away her death? Like, that doesn't happen with us. We're untouchable, right? How are you creating a narrative similar to a black person on this white woman? Like, what? That does not compute with me. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Pause, right? And then that's where the whole unlearning and undoing of all of the things that were taught to white people in this country starts happening. Because unfortunately, growing up as I wouldn't say it's fortunate, it's unfortunate and it's fortunate as a black person growing up in America. I will say being a black kid that grew up in Southern Indiana was a very educational um, thing for me. And I have to spin it in that way because I feel like a lot of things happen in our lives for a reason in terms of, well, I think everything happens in our lives for a reason. What am I saying, Alicia? I think it's educational in the way of a lot of what we deal with, or I'll say a lot of what I deal with. I don't want to just give this a generalization for every black person in Southern Indiana because everybody's different. But I'll say for me, as a black kid, black girl, growing up in Evansville, Indiana, I always felt like I was on the outside looking in on certain situations. Not all situations, but in many situations, especially when it came to racial injustice, um, it was like a thing where I would pull myself out of certain situations. Sometimes I would be in it and I was like fighting for the rights because I've always been that kind of person. I use my voice um to stand up for the good. And when I was younger, I've toned down. I'll just say I've toned down a lot. But I would raise my voice and I would raise concerns, like I still do now, but it's not as intense as I was back then. I think also too because here in New York, racism and injustices to some degree, not all, are a bit more nuanced. People are a bit more nuanced here with their racism. It's almost a thing where you have to kind of like think about it, like, wait a minute, was that racist? It's one of those. But for the most part in Southern Indiana, you knew where you stood, you know where you could go, where you couldn't go. I mean, there's some places and spaces here in New York like that, but it's a bit more clear cut where I'm from, or at least when I was there. I don't want to say right now, but because I haven't lived in Evansville, Indiana in a very long time. But I will say, you knew where to be and where not to be, right? And being in those situations and spaces were, like I said, it was very educational for me because I knew, unfortunately, by way of trauma, because growing up as a Black kid, for me, once again, for me, I'm not speaking for everybody. Growing up as a Black kid in Evansville, Indiana, you were constantly faced with adversity, or I was. I was constantly faced with adversity. And I always had to prove myself, which is, I think, another trauma response for me was I had to prove that I was, worthy to be in certain spaces. And so I did that by way of educating myself. Um, I have an associate's, I have a bachelor's, I have two masters, and I have a doctorate in nursing practice. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because I felt like I had to get to the pinnacle, the top of whatever platforms as it relates to my career in nursing to prove that I was um, competitive in these places and spaces. I'm grateful for my education. I realize that I am typically in most, spaces when it comes to uh, the pediatric healthcare that I do, that I'm probably one of the smartest people in those rooms. That's no shade. That's just my experience. With my experience and my education, a lot of people don't have that education, and they don't have also the human experience that I've had growing up and understanding and having empathy for people. Uh, that goes a long way as well, especially in nursing. So it was very eye opening for me as an individual seeing folks s- lack empathy in the healthcare field, lack empathy in just everyday life, and then get up in arms when someone of their race was then treated unfairly. And then so everything has to stop, right? Everything has to stop because now the injustice falls on them. And it's like, oh, no, 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 that's not how things operate, right? And yes, protest, call out the injustice, but let's be consistent. Injustice is injustice, regardless if you're white, black, Hispanic, whatever race, whatever gender, right? Injustice is injustice. There's no black injustice. There's no white injustice. There's no gay injustice, right? There's no, you know, subset injustices. Injustice is injustice. And that takes me back to what I was saying initially. It's like these types of this type of mindset or these types of mindsets are what will keep us in this loop of fuckery, right? Oh, we'll sound the alarm for the people we feel like need uh the uh the coverage and the exposure, but for everyone else, eh, That's expected, right? That's just kind of how things go with them. And it's unfortunate, thoughts and prayers, and, on to the next one, right? But if we want to get out of this loop, we have to start changing our mindsets. And we have to, and that's, I shouldn't say we, white people have to start changing their mindsets. And people, not as much white people that are upholding white supremacy, and people in general that are holding up white supremacy. Because it's not just white folks that hold up white supremacy. White supremacy is so sneaky and slick in how it has infiltrated everyday life, right? How we think, how we feel, how we move, um, how we provide opportunities for some and not for others, how we justify that as well, right? And so that has to shift. And like I said, with the folks that started it, with the folks that are of the origins of it, and with the folks who have allowed themselves to believe that white supremacy is benefiting them, even though they're not white folks, right? And that's, I think for me, that is something that is like crazy impressive, that white supremacy has allowed all of us to justify and explain away why certain things happen to certain people and not to others. And we all have fallen victim to it to some degree, you know? But this is the time, y'all. This is the time that we really have to think about how we are moving forward with this new way of living and being, because everything we knew from I'll say 2016, probably about 2016, and even before then, obviously, right? At least for folks who have been quote unquote woke, which is another thing that just cracks me up beyond belief. Folks are like, "Oh my gosh, you're woke." I mean, the opposite of being woke is asleep, right? So pick your, like, do you want to be asleep walking through this life, or do you want to be awake and understand what the hell's happening? Um, it's up to you. But there's that. But yeah, for folks who have had this sense of wokeness and know what America is about and what it's always been about, this is nothing new. This is not something that is like, oh my gosh, we're at the end of everything. No, this is just a part of the fabric, boo. You're just now being affected. So it feels like the end of the world for you. But this is just another day in America for folks that are Black, for folks that are, brown. Um, it's another day, and if this past year up until now has been too much for you, imagine I'm 47 years old, and my ancestors and my elders have been through way worse than what I had been through, right? I'm thinking about my mother. My mother was born in 1938. My grandmother was born in the 20s. Her mother, I think she was born in the 1800s. Uh, Actually, yeah, she had to have been born in the 1800s. My great great grandmother, um, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm thinking about all these people who have been under this oppressive uh, country and have found ways to still thrive and do and be the best that they can be and produce amazing people to be on this planet. If this past year up until now has been too much for you, imagine what Black folks have been dealing with for hundreds of years in this country. Like I said, I'm 47 years old. I've never not known Well, I just say I've never not known. First of all, that's not even well, who cares? You know what I'm talking about. I'm tired of that too. Like, oh, what's proper English? Listen, you know exactly what I'm talking about. At the age of 6 years old, that's when I first really experienced racism. So it's from the age 6, so I would say 41 years of my life, I've known what racism is, and I know what injustice looks like. At 6 years old, I had someone in the 1st grade tell me to go back to Africa. This is all happening when I got to 1st grade. Someone told me to go back to Africa. Someone asked me to taste my skin to see if it was chocolate. Someone obviously with the whole hair thing, wondering what's the deal with my hair? Why does it look weird? They're trying to touch it like I'm some damn zoo animal. Um, being called a monkey. Uh, and this is all at 6 years old. Okay. So 41 years of my life, I've known what racism looks like. I have been harassed and, treated like crap in many instances. Uh, like I said, I grew up in Indiana. So you know, it's blatant there. Um, and so it's wild. And this is not me playing oppression Olympics either. Like my oppression is no better than anyone else's, but I'm just trying to paint a picture of how if this right now is too much, can you imagine? Can you empathize with folks who've been dealing with this for so much longer? And then at the same time, if we are all Americans and we are citizens of the same country and are supposed to support each other because we are from the same country, where have you been in support of your fellow countrymen? Where have you been? Like it's wild to me that it's taken this to be oh my gosh, this is not America. Yes, it is. This has always been America. And Black people have been trying to tell you since the beginning of time, if you don't nip this shit in the bud, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass and potentially kill you. And now here we are. Now here we are. And I'm not saying, well, no, let me get this right. Here we are. And my thing is, this not only needs to be a wake up call, but this also needs to be a reckoning with white people in your spaces and places with the people that you are surrounded by and the folks that you know are blatantly racist in your family, in your friend groups, in your community. White people have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of work to do in this country, and even on a global scale. They have a lot of work to do if they're trying to create places and spaces where they, quote unquote, will start feeling safe again. Uh, they have to create safety for everyone. This sense of entitlement has to be eradicated, like gone, because you're no better than me. I'm no better than you. We are humans on this planet living and experiencing a human experience all together. Done. There's nothing supreme about you. You're no better than anybody on this planet. You are another human being living here. Done. Done. And it sucks that it's taking you this long, folks, this long to see that. But you've never been better than anybody. And no one, I just say no one. Most Black folks are not here to try and conquer you. That's not even in our DNA to conquer. It's just not. Like here's the thing. If Black folks wanted to conquer this country, This should have been conquered a long time ago. We're not that type of people. We are welcoming people. We want to, you know, show love and express our love by way of, things that we do. We like to bring people along as opposed to exclude. And that's been our downfall in a lot of ways. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. It truly is. And should we stop being who we are? I say no. I say no. I know people say we need to start gatekeeping, we need to start this. Be who you are. And if people want to continue to be nasty and evil, let them do their thing. And at the same time, let them know I'm not taking your shit, right? Like, now that you know what time it is really in this country, play yourself if you want. But you already have seen what can happen in this country, right? They're not actually here to protect you in the way that you thought. You know what I'm saying? And to that as well, when we think of folks in like Appalachia, that's like a that's like a thing that a lot of folks in power don't even want to talk about or have even brought up, because white folks up there are broke, are poor, in poverty. And they have been, a lot of them, not all, but they have been brainwashed as well to think that their skin color is enough. Meanwhile, they are barely making it. Barely making. This country is doing nothing for them but lying to them and saying that skin color, hey, at least you're white. At least you're white. And my hope is that eventually folks will see that lie is literally what it is, a lie. Your skin color is not going to provide prosperity. It has not provided prosperity for you, possibly your mother, your grandmother. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is generational poverty that we see. And it's not just Appalachia. There's other places around this country where you'll see really poor white folks. And they think that skin color is going to be their saving grace. Look at the issues that happened in North Carolina and even in Appalachia as well with all the storms. The country the country didn't do shit. Those folks to this day are still trying to figure out their lives. Still, the farmers in this country screwed. But will some of them probably still be in the mindset of, oh, at least I'm white. Trump, he's gonna, if I would vote for him again. Like, are you kidding me? Well, whatever, have your way. Have your way. But at the end of the day, if you want things to change, truly, and you want to see this country thrive in a way that it's never been able to thrive, you have to start changing your mindset. And you have to start seeing yourself as an equal to everyone else that's on this land. Your ancestors came over here and fucked shit up. Why are you continuing that legacy? Because that's what you're doing. You're continuing to fuck up this country, fuck up this land in the name of I'm an American, I'm white, and that's enough. And it's not. It's causing way too much havoc. We are we are in probably one of the darkest places ever in this country. One, because people are now realizing it does not matter about your skin color. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. It's either, at this point, it's either you're with these folks in the MAGA movement or you're not. It's one or the other. And I feel like we can get to a point where we can overthrow that if we start changing our mindsets and seeing each other as equal and dismantling white supremacy once and for all. But until then, we'll stay in this fuckery and keep acting like we don't know how we got here and this is not America and we're better than this and la 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 la. Come on. My all my love, light and love goes out to Miss Good's family and friends. I send extra light and love to her. Her children, I believe she has 2 children. I could be wrong. Don't quote me, y'all, but she has children, sending light and love to them. I cannot imagine a child losing their parent that just left them, took them to school, and then you are now finding out that that parent is now gone. Like, what? These are humans, y'all. Humans. People, not caricatures that we plaster their face on an Instagram post and move on. There's so much going on beyond our, you know, uh, what do we say? Say their name, lost but not forgot. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much that goes on beyond that. They have people that loved them, that wanted to see them come home. So many Black people who were just living their day to day, trying to make it. Somebody was expecting them to come home. So many folks that have been obtained by ICE over the years, because I think a lot of people don't even realize this is not something new. ICE has been around before Trump. And so you have to start questioning those things too. It's like this country has been about the bullshit for a long time. And it has nothing to do with you being Democrat. It has nothing to do with you being Republican, independent, none of that bullshit. Because that's what it is. It's bullshit. This system requires us to maintain the craziness that we see day in, day out in terms of us being against one another in order for it to operate. And so if we break it down, like I said, if you're with MAGA or not with MAGA, my hope is that the not with MAGA folks outpopulate and outnumber, however you want to say it, those folks to dismantle this bullshit called white supremacy, colonialism, the whole nine. Because this game is like the fact that this game is still being played, you know what I'm saying? It's like, guys, when are we flipping the board? Like, when are we flipping the board? Enough already. This game is whack. Who's really winning? Because we're all playing the game. It's just, when are we going to get tired of playing the game? Because, like I said, the majority of us, regardless of your skin color, you're being played as opposed to you really dominating the game. So it's up to the folks that are still playing the game by way of wanting to uphold the supremacy, the white supremacy that we are experiencing in this country. Do you still want to do this? That's really the question. Do you really still want to play this fucking game? I don't. And if you don't, then you've got to start doing the work. And it's not fun. It's not pretty. And many people will have to have difficult conversations with people that they have kind of allowed to say bullshit and do bullshit in their face, as it relates to um, speaking bad about Black people and brown people. Call that shit out. Let them know, no, I'm not doing that. And you shouldn't either. And while we're in each other's presence, I prefer you not do that. Right? Whatever you have to say. You know what I'm saying? But it's time to do the work, white people. It's time to shut this shit down. Enough is enough. Full stop. All right, y'all. I'm gonna head on out of here. In the midst of this frustration, though, I will say, I feel like things are going to turn around. But in the moment, we can share that frustration. We can share our anger, our upset, and it's a good thing to do so. And it's also good to look to a better future, a better way of living and being, because I don't want to stay in this. Some people love being in chaos. And I feel like we have been governed by people who love chaos, who love this toxic type of living. They benefit off of it. And it's time to stop. It's time to stop. Like, enough is enough. Um, did these things have to happen? Of course, because sometimes, not sometimes, most people will not respond until shit happens to them. And it's actually in their uh, front yard, backyard, however the hell you want to look at it. And so these things had to happen, but it's sad that it had to happen, um, despite all of the warning signs that have been expressed over the years. But yeah, here we are. All right, y'all. Sending y'all lots of love. Let's do the work. Let's get out there. Let's create some change, and let's maintain uh, dismantling white supremacy once and for all. I love y'all. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Eating Me podcast. And hey, I'll see y'all next week. All right. Bye.